What's up guys, today I will show you how to remove a pop-up mechanism from a 5th gen Celica. So let's open the hood. Pop up the headlights, and before we go any further, let's remove the RTR fuse to make sure the pop-ups won't close up on our hands by accident. The fuse is located next to the battery, and there is a label on top of the fuse box. The RTR is a 30 amp fuse. Just for good measure, I'll make sure there is no reaction to the light switch. Now I'll remove the main trim piece here. It is held on by 3 screws total. I've removed the first one. The 2 other ones are here. Good. Now this can be tricky to pull out, but you'll need to pull in on or press in on the carbon fiber piece here at the bottom, like so, and then you should be able to just pull it out, like this. There's a little pin here, by the way, when you're gonna be putting it back together. And that's about it for this trim piece. Next we'll remove the headlight, and it is held on by 4 screws total. I'm removing the bottom 2 first, although there's no order here really needed. Then I'll finish up with the 2 upper screws. At this point I can pull it outwards and remove this frame here so it doesn't fall on me later. And this mess of wiring shouldn't be as bad for you. I have some extra stuff here for the LED headlights. It should be just a simple 3-pin connector in the factory version. In any case, I'm gonna unplug whatever I have here. And now I can set the headlight aside. Now we're gonna remove the metal trim on top of the headlight. It is held on by 4 8mm screws. So I'm gonna loosen it first here. There is a ground wire on my car that's for the LED headlights. Arguably a pretty bad place for it, but you should not have it in there. These 4 screws are kinda a little tight on my car. They're a little bit rusted. And you can also use these to adjust the trim if it's not aligned with your hood. I'll show this at the end of the video during the reinstall. I'm gonna finish up with 2 screws here, and by the way, this is why I'm using the little extension. It's so I don't scratch my paint here if the ratchet was too close to the fender. Alright, I'm finishing up the last screw, and now I can pull it all out. Well, all the trim piece. Like this. Now that we have that aside, let's finish removing the wiring. So I'm gonna remove my LED adapter here that inverts the ground or the polarity of the headlights, otherwise they don't really work. And I'm gonna pull out this daylight wire, which I have already cut a long time ago, as you can see. And there is a clip here in the back. I only have a zip tie now. I'm gonna show it when I remove it, but you need to remove it here. It's actually mounted to the headlight assembly, not to the frame, so it won't come out unless you... I mean, the mechanism won't come out unless you remove this. So I did remove the zip tie, and I'm just gonna show here this little clip. That's what's usually in that hole you see behind it. And that's can be very tight to remove. I think on one side I already cut it off with clippers because I just wasn't able to pull it out. And we're finally ready to remove the pop-up assembly. Well, almost ready. There is still a connector and a wire preventing us from doing this. I'm gonna try showing it here. You can briefly see the mess of wires and a connector there, which is what we need to remove. I'm gonna put it into a better spot here. I managed to pull it almost out, and now you can see it much more clearly. There is a clip on that connector. You can kind of see it's like towards the windshield of the car in that direction. So I'm gonna try unplugging this here. That went pretty easy because I've done this before, so it's loose, but the first time I did it, it was stuck and I spent an ungodly amount of time doing that. But this time it's faster and I can pull it all out. And here it is in all its glory. One pop-up mechanism out. Here's a little more close up to the connector. It's 2 big pins for the motor and 3 small pins for the position switch. I'm gonna take this home and try to clean it up a bit more. Alright, I did a bit more detailed description of the mechanism in another video, but let's make a quick recap here. We have the bucket here at the top where the headlight sits at. Then at the bottom we have the motor in black part here. And above the motor we have the position switch, which handles if it's up, down or between. And the motor and the switches are held on by these 2 nuts here. I never tried unbolting them, but it should be possible to just do that and replace that part. And finally the motor motion is linked to the pop-up mechanism at the top by the linkage in between. Right here. Now I'm removing the motor, which is held on by 2 screws. They are pretty easy to spot. I'm having some trouble removing one. It was very rusted. I suggest you get a proper bit for that. Alright, now with the 2 screws removed, we can pop out this plastic white knob. Just by hand, it's not very hard. And finally we can remove the black casing. It is magnetic, it's gonna be attracted, but with not really significant amount of force you can pull it out. Alright, now as I pulled it I already unseated the rotor behind it, we'll get to that later. Now before we attempt to remove the rotor, there is 2 small washers on top of it, which will fall out unless you remove them first. So I'm gonna take them off now and put them somewhere I don't lose them. Here is a zoom in on what I meant by unseating the rotor partially. There is carbon brushes here at the bottom, and they should be in contact with the commutator, which are the copper plates above it. So this is how it should be, and this is how I made it after I pulled out that black cover. So in this state, if you try to reassemble it, you probably wouldn't be able to. The brushes are blocking those commutators from letting you push the rotor further. So you have to retract them first. And I'll show that in a bit. First I'll show you how to fully remove the rotor and clean up the contacts. So as I'm spinning the motor counterclockwise, you can see the mechanism is moving slightly. So I have to move the other way. Now I'm rotating it clockwise and it's coming out. At some point I should be able to just pull it out completely. Right now. The carbon brushes will come out, their springs will fall out, I'll show you a zoom in a second, but we got the rotor out. Alright, so let's zoom in here. This is how it will roughly look like. Both carbon brushes are popped out, their springs are also showing, maybe even partially falling into the hole. So what I'll do next is I'll get my tweezers and I'll remove the springs. Alright, that is the second spring out. Now we can go ahead and clean the contacts. I have some paper towel, lint-free would be even better. I also have some isopropyl alcohol, which I'll spray on the towel, and I'll use this to clean down the contacts. You should be able to see some black soot in there, so just wipe it as best as you can. While you're doing this, be careful about the relatively small wires going from each contact to the coil. If you tear them off, then it's likely not gonna work anymore. Alright, I wiped down a bunch of soot. By the way, you can move down the mechanism now, and you don't have to be worried about having to recalibrate some positions. That's not needed at all. It's completely safe. So I will reassemble the springs. Whoops. Yeah, if it falls down, you should be able to either pick it up or put it upside down so it falls down. So I'll put the spring there with one hand with the tweezers and then try to push the carbon brush there. Alright, I got it, really good. This can be quite tricky. And then I have these alligator clips and I'll use them to hold down the brush in its place, like so. And then I'll just repeat it for the other side. Alright, I got that in. So here's a little close-up image of that. And now we can return the rotor. So I'll push it in and then rotate it counterclockwise, so in the opposite direction as when I was taking it out. And very soon I should hit it all the way. Now you can see if I move the mechanism, it spins it pretty fast. At this point, after verifying the carbon brushes and the contacts are aligned, we can remove the alligator clips or whatever else you used to hold it down, and we can reassemble the motor. Be careful to not rotate it clockwise at this moment, otherwise it would very easily slip out from the and let the brushes get stuck underneath the rotor. We should remember to return those two washers, and I can return the black cover. Now I'll return those two screws. I'll return the white knob. And next I'll pop off the switch cover. Here you should inspect that the grease is in good condition, that there is no severe wear and tear on the contacts. And if you do spot any like dirt, you can try to get it out with a cotton swab, like I'm doing here. Or if it's really contaminated, you might want to try cleaning it all up and applying completely new grease. I'll pop the cover back. And by the way, no matter how you turned this thing around during the disassembly and whatever, you don't have to worry about the positions needing some calibration. As long as you didn't remove this nut here and messed around with it, then it shouldn't matter at how much you turn the motor or whatever during the disassembly, it will still be fine. And now I'll grease up the linkage here as the last part. You can pop it off rather easily with a flathead screwdriver, like I'm doing here. Sometimes maybe even by hand. And we'll need to clean this up to remove the dirt. So again, I'm using isopropyl alcohol and some towel. I'm cleaning both the exterior and also the joint itself. I'll do the same for the other side. That's done. Next up, I'm cleaning the socket here on the motor side. And also I did clean this one off camera too. I'm applying some grease here, which should be safe. And also into the linkage itself. I'll pop it back on. Move it around a little bit. Clean up the excess, and I'll repeat the same here. A little more grease over here, and I'll pop it back in. Nice, and I'm just gonna run the motor for a bit. That's looking good. So we're done here. Now I'm gonna show you how to put it back together. We'll start by putting the mechanism close to the connector and connecting the connector. Just push it in until it clicks. It's much easier than removing it. And now you'll have to wiggle the mechanism inside. Try to follow these movements. It's not particularly hard. Once it's inside, you can rest it on its guiding pin. I'll show that in a sec. Here is the guiding pin. It goes into the groove and makes sure the mechanism stays there in the rough position. Now we're gonna put the two screws back here. I'm gonna tighten them just a little bit so I can still wiggle the mechanism. And now I'll pull the wiring through. I'm gonna use the factory mounting pin here to show how that looks, but you could also use a zip tie. Now I'm returning the last third screw down below, and I'm tightening that one all the way. This one is a bit tricky, but with the right tools, it's not hard getting in there. And now I'm gonna finish tightening the two upper screws as well. I'm going to reconnect the LED wiring harness here, but that's not a step you should follow unless you have it as well. And it's time to return the headlight assembly. First, make sure you got the mounting frame the right way, and the other way won't fit into the holes. Then put it over your headlight. It should just slide on. And let's reconnect the wiring. Now we can slide the headlight into the slot. It's going to fall out a little, that's fine. Meanwhile, get your screw and screw down all the 4 screws. The lower screws can be a bit tricky. If they fall down, you'll have to search for them. They usually fall onto the plastic cover below, and it can be hard to retrieve them sometimes. Now it's time to return the top trim piece. I'm just gonna roughly line it up here with the mounting holes. And I'm going to screw down the 4 screws just so they're a little tight in contact. Enough so it doesn't fall down and I can position it, but not tight enough that I'm not able to move it at all. Doing the same on the other side. And I'm going to push this a bit upward, so then I can push it down when I'm aligning it. Before you go next, make sure your switch is in the hold position, otherwise the pop-ups might go down or up. And of course the next step is to return the fuse, or if you had your battery disconnected, you can reconnect the battery. Because now we'll need to start moving the pop-ups. Alright, I'm closing the hood all the way. So then I can observe if the trim is aligned or not with the rest of the hood and the fender. Now I'm gonna move the headlights down. And you can see here it's poking out, so I'm pushing it in and trying to make it aligned with the rest of the hood and the fender on the right side. So just play around with this. You should check all 4 corners of this trim piece, even the 2 corners towards the windshield. Alright, so I was satisfied with how it looks. Now I'm gonna open the hood, pop up the headlights, pop out the headlights, and now I'm gonna tighten it down. And while I'm tightening it down all the way, I'm holding it with the other hand to make sure I'm not misaligning it. If you just start tightening, there's a big chance that the trim is going to shift slightly. So you might need a couple more iterations to get it all the way like fine-tuned, but usually it's pretty straightforward. The most annoying part is you have to close the hood all the time. So I'm closing it again. I'm retracting it, and now I'm just making sure it is nice and smooth. I'm pretty satisfied with it. You should also check the clearance or like the spacing between the metal trim piece and the hood here, and on the sides as well. If it's not great, you would have to loosen the 3 main screws holding the pop-up assembly and like wiggle it around. Now let's return the final trim piece. There's this pin here, and it goes into this groove here, so watch out for that. First, when you're pushing it in, try to like get the lower part here popped over the trim. Yes, like that. That's nice. Then watch out for that pin, of course, and also there is one more pin at the top. That pin is right here. I'll show a bit more clearly. Yeah, here, and it goes into that pocket there, right there. So watch out for that too. And once I get it here, I'm basically done. That other pin is also in. It's good, so I'm gonna secure it with the screws. As you're securing it, make sure your other hand is pushing the trim piece so it's reasonably aligned. Otherwise, it can be a little like off. Not a huge problem, but a small thing. So it's the 3 screws in total. And finally, I'm going to reassemble or like hook up this cover from below. I have some insane screws here from the last owner, but just use whatever you have there. And with that, we're done. I'm just gonna pop the headlights a couple times. You should be able to see it's reasonably well aligned. I'm happy with it. Thanks for watching.